What would you put in your backpack if you had a new coaching engagement but could only take a limited number of items? Each episode, the Coach's Backpack looks at the multifaceted world of coaching and asks a new guest to tell us what they would take with them and why. Hi, I'm David Lowe, and this week we're taking a peek inside the backpack of Helen Garcia, outdoor coach. Welcome, Helen.
Hello, David. Lovely to meet you.
And lovely, but we are inside, so I apologise for that. Let's start. How would you describe what you do in under 20 words?
Right. I support individuals in reconnecting with nature and themselves.
Not sure that was even 10 words. You get an extra prize there. Okay, reconnecting with nature and themselves. Right, we will dig more into outdoor coaching as we go through it. I know that you know the concept, but in case someone has not heard this podcast before, you've been asked to coach a new client and you are limited to what you can take with you. So you've got your essentials, you've got your clothes, your toothbrush, and in addition to those, you can take a book, one tool, technique, concept, method, approach, etc., one other item of your choice, plus a person from the past or the present to accompany you. So, Helen, what would you take with you and why?
Okay, so I will start with the book, I think. It's quite tricky, isn't it, trying to choose a book? I do love reading, and I do have quite a few books that I enjoy. A friend reached out to me the other day and asked for the book recommendation. So I was like, I was sort of racking my brain. And The Cry of the Kalahari by Delia and Mark Owings came to mind, because that's one book that I would recommend over and over and over again, because it's absolutely amazing. The reason I'm picking it for this particular session that we've got today is it's basically a true story about Delia and Mark's journey to the Kalahari and living in the Kalahari. It's such a emotional roller coaster. It's got, fun, it's got a little bit of fear, it's got everything in between. And you sort of come out of the book almost feeling a little bit out of breath and I don't know, you're so immersed in it. Again, like the reason that I want to bring it up today is it connects you in all sorts of ways. So it's not actually really about the story for me, but it's that connection with nature, because I won't give the whole book away. They go there, they spend some time in the Kalahari, and they're trying to do some stuff with nature, basically. And it's really interesting because you get connected with the earth, you get connected with Africa, you get connected with local people, you get connected with them, with their struggles. It's just amazing. Yeah, it's an amazing book. Just coming back to sort of the things that I value, and that's around fun, connection, and freedom. The book, I think, just encompasses all of that for me. It is fun. It connects me with nature, with people, with animals. And it also is that freedom, the fact that they got up and one day went to the Kalahari to live. It's just amazing. So yeah, that's my book.
I don't know if you know about the background of them. Me doing that and Ray Mears doing that would be a different thing, right? I mean, I'm not even really one to go camping, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, do you know anything about the background of them?
Yeah, so I believe that they are zoologists. I think they were living somewhere in the States, and they just wanted to do a little bit more to experiment to how it would be like to live in the Kalahari for, I think, 6 months. It goes on longer than that, which is quite interesting anyway. But yeah, they're just looking at, I guess, the effects of people on the Kalahari, the things that we do, and it's amazing. So that's their background, but I don't think they came out of university and just decided to do it. But we're all a bit wild like that, aren't we? We're like, the world is our oyster in uni. We can do anything. And I love that they actually did. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, that leads me to inquire a little bit about your outdoor coaching. So how outdoor are we talking? Because there's a difference between going for a walk in a forest and you taking me to the Kalahari. How outdoor are you when you say outdoor coaching?
Okay, so it's a really interesting question, because I was having this discussion at a workshop that I went to the other day on outdoor coaching. And the thing that came up was, if we're just talking about walking coaching, in fact, I talked to this with another coach as well. If we're just talking about walking coaching, is that very inclusive? Because at the end of the day, not everybody likes walking, not everybody can transport themselves in an easier way around the countryside or in a forest. So what does it actually mean to be an outdoor coach and to be able to support coachees or people, individuals in your environment to get them where they want to be? So essentially, it's not just about walking. It's not about climbing mountains for me personally, but what it's about is reconnecting with nature. And whether that is me right now sitting here, I'm able to look out my window and I can see trees, I can see a little wren, I can see blossom, I can see the grass. And actually, I can connect with the outdoors. I've got the window open, so it's lovely and fresh. I've got indoor plants as well. So if you were someone who wanted to reconnect with nature, but actually a little bit frightened of nature, maybe you've been living in a city for a long time, then going for a walk and going through mud and, cowpats and the rest of it is probably not going to be something that straight away energizes you. It could be quite fearful. So outdoor coaching is more than just walking coaching. It's the ability to see, touch, and connect with nature, get away from your desk and get away from the environment that you're currently in into a space where you are hopefully a little bit closer to the great outdoors. I'm going to say I don't like to discriminate against to anybody who might not be able to actually get outside. I lived in the city for a really long time and not always very close to a park. But that doesn't mean that I can't have the opportunity to say, actually, I want to connect again with nature. How can I do this in a creative way? Maybe it is about having a plant pot by my side or all of these sorts of things.
Okay, I've got a quick fire round for you. So you're outside. Would you rather be outdoor in a desert or outdoor in a jungle?
A jungle.
Would you rather face a cow or a horse?
A cow.
Tiger or leopard?
Leopard.
You've got no fear at all here, have you? It's like, yeah, leopard.
Yeah.
Neither. The answer from me would have been, I don't want to face either of those. Like the previous one was a cow or a horse. You'd rather face a cow than a horse, though. Cows can be quite nasty, can't they?
Oh, I don't know.
Right. So we've got Cry of the Calamari. I knew I'd say that. Calamari. It's not Cry of the Calamari, David. It is Cry of the Kalahari. Cry of the Calamari is a totally different book.
That is a vegan book, isn't it? That's
Cry of the Calamari. I feel I want to write that now. It's where I basically leave university and go straight to just eating dishes that I've never eaten before. Okay, enough of this nonsense. Right, so you've got the Cry of the Kalahari by Mark and Delia Owens in your backpack.
Yes.
By the way, do you have a specific backpack that you like to take when you go outdoors? I've never asked anyone this before, but it's appropriate.
Yeah. You know what? We have got a magical backpack at home, and I can only describe this backpack. It is about maybe just under 30 centimeters high. It's quite small. Wide, it's maybe about 25 centimeters, something like that. But it's really, really small. You can fit almost anything in that backpack. Like, it's magical. You just keep on putting stuff in. Like, I've got this, so listeners won't be able to see, but I've got this massive water bottle that's like, it's 2 litres in there. Make sure that I keep myself nicely hydrated. I can fit that in there alongside a whole bunch of snacks, pocket-sized game, a book. It just keeps going. So yeah, I love that you asked that question, because that little sort of black backpack is an epic. Even my mum, sorry, just bring my mum into the conversation, why not? She was like astounded. How are you taking more things out of the backpack? I was like, because it's magical.
Bring your mum on the podcast. Like you said, you bring her into the conversation. Let's get her along. She can join in. Is she there?
She would she's not, no, I don't live with my mum anymore. I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What make is this magical backpack, or is it too magical to tell anyone?
There is no brand, I don't think. It is brandless. I don't even know where I got it. I've had it for at least 15 years. Never broken. Goes everywhere with me. Love it. Yeah, I don't know what brand, sorry.
Maybe we can get a photograph of it for the subscribers to our mailing list so they can actually see this magical backpack as an extra treat for them.
Yes, let's do that.
Right, I'm allowing you to take your magical backpack, but you are limited to the number of items anyway, so that doesn't help you. What else is going with you?
Okay, the next item that I'm going to take is a magnifying glass. And that's to discover the intricacies of all the small insects, the small plants, everything else that you may not be able to see with your naked eye. Because about 3 years ago, I bought a house with a garden, and I'm not going too far off track. I'll come back to the magnifying glass, but I bought a house with a garden, and that was after living in a flat for quite a long time. And so this was a really kind of epic moment. And I remember the first summer of living in that house, I went outside in the garden and I was like, wow, like look at all the insects, look at all the things that I had totally forgotten about. And I'd almost traveled back in time to being a 5-year-old again. Like I was so inquisitive, so curious about finding the different things. Like I remember coming across a millipede and being like, this is amazing. And so I'd get my iPhone out and I'd like take a photo. I then had like bees having a bit of a rest in a flower, and I'd like take a photo of that. And I sort of became like pretty obsessed almost with taking pictures of bugs and being like, how cool is this? And like sending it to my friends, and they were like, yeah, Helen, they're bugs. And I was like, I know, but it's really amazing. And I remember having this connection with a hoverfly, and I don't want to sound too crazy, but this connection with this hoverfly was amazing. I was at my compost heap, and there was, I don't know, with hoverflies, they sort of hover in front of you, as the name, and sort of stay there, and they can stay there for ages. And with this one particular hoverfly, I put sort of my hand up and my finger up, thinking, God, this guy's been there a long time. Maybe he needs a bit of a rest. And he landed on my finger, and I was like, wow. We spent like I don't know, 30 seconds probably just having this moment where this hoverfly landed on my finger, and I was just like, this is really amazing. Like we are so connected with nature, and we forget that we are part of nature. Human beings are part of nature. And I think all too often, certainly in myself, and as we refer to nature, as we sort of refer to it as something else, not being part of it, but actually we are part of it. And this moment with this with this hoverfly really brought it home to me about, I think it must have been about 3 years ago. And yeah, it was really amazing. It was really sort of almost hypnotic in the way that the time went. And so coming back to having this magnifying glass is really to home in on the different bits, and able to, as an outdoor coach, being able to support people have that same moment in time of, okay, we can see trees, we can see grass, we can see and smell the air, but what else is there that can really draw us in? And that gets me really excited. So that's why I bring my magnifying glass.
I had to look up what a hoverfly is. They look a little bit like a wasp, right?
Yes, they do. They are stingless.
I've seen these around my garden, and I wondered if they were like hornets or types of bees or what. I've got to be honest, Helen. At my age, I should know more about the outside. I had to admit recently that I hadn't actually realised or thought or just acknowledged that a bumblebee is not a honeybee. Like,
Yeah.
this was news to me like last week. So I'm, judge all you want.
No, there's no judgment. To connect with that, I had the same experience about 3 years ago, being like, oh my God, these sort of black and yellow things are not wasps, they're actually honeybees. How amazing is that? So I can completely understand. And there's so many different varieties of bee. It's insane. And I learned that bees sleep in flowers. And I thought that was really cool. So when you see a little bee not really doing anything, like maybe he's asleep. I've been known to stroke a bee. I don't know if that's allowed or not, but it's an amazing moment. They don't do anything. They're lovely and they're super soft.
Whether it's allowed or insane. I did also hear something. I went on a first aid course recently that it has like a swirly, a spiral tail, which is its sting. And so actually, if you get stung by a bee and you're really tough, it will then actually unwind itself and fly off, and it won't leave its sting in you. If you actually kind of squish it or whatever and you've got the sting in you, the worst thing you can do is get a pair of tweezers and pick it out, because it has like a ball at the end with all of the poison in it, the sting, and then you're basically squeezing it all into your body.
Oh, wow. So is it a myth then that bees don't sting because when they do, they die? Or is it because when you swat
No.
them off? Oh, well, this is
Yeah,
interesting.
well, again, you're asking a guy here about the intricacies of bees who didn't know that a bumblebee didn't make honey recently. So, uh, I've got a joke for you about insects, if I may.
Go on.
Not necessarily a good joke, and I can't remember it, so I'm going to have to make bits up. Um, the animals were having a football match, and in the first half, it was basically the insects versus the other animals, right? In the first half, the dogs, the cows and stuff, they were scoring goals like one after the other. But half time, it was like 23-0. Anyway, they had their half time, they came back on, and the millipede came on and was like Cristiano Ronaldo. He's the only football player I really know. And he scored like 50 goals. And the other insects said, what the hell was going on there? What happened in the first half? He said, well, I was putting on my boots.
Oh dear.
Um, so let's move on from that. If you could talk to any animal, which one would you want to learn their language?
And okay, can I choose an insect?
You
Is
can
that
have any. You can't have all insects. You can have,
oh,
yeah, you can have a type of insect. Like I'll give you, I don't even know, bees. Are bees are an insect? I think bees are an insect. You can have all bees. I'm not going to make you choose a honeybee over a bumblebee, but you can't have all insects.
well, I think I would have to choose the hoverfly. I know that's not that creative, but they are so I mean, are they observing? What are they thinking? The hoverfly is such an inquisitive creature. I mean, I think we should be more hoverfly. Like, how can we observe to connect? I think that's for me. And if I could speak to a hoverfly, I mean, God knows, maybe they're not observant at all, and they're just looking at us and not giving a monkeys about what's happening and how we're doing. But I do think there's like, yeah, there's something more in there. So if I had a conversation with a hoverfly, that's definitely what I would choose.
Do you know what the difference between a hoverfly and a hummingbird is?
What the difference is?
I mean, apart from one's a lot bigger than the
Uh,
other, but in terms of their hovering behavior, hummingbirds feed in midair. Hoverflies don't feed in midair.
wow. So I'm going to say yes. I do know the answer to that. Hummingbirds feed in midair.
Yes, it is
Hoverflies
exactly that.
don't. Yeah.
Yes, you've got that right. And with the magic of my editing, it will look like you actually knew that answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. I feel we should probably press on, otherwise you're going to have a backpack that's going to have a lot of space in it. So
Yeah.
you've got your book, Cry of the. I can't stop saying it correctly. Incorrectly now. The Cry of the. I've got a mental block.
Kalahari. Yeah.
Kalahari.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got your book, The Cry of the Kalahari. You've got your magnifying glass. What else?
Well, one thing that I always take with me in my backpack, because there are so many tools, models. There's like hundreds, isn't there, for coaching? You could use whatever you want, depending on the circumstance. Often, and I find this slightly frustrating, I will admit, we use questions a lot. Questions are helpful, but they are not always suitable for every circumstance. So I'm going to choose to bring with me metaphors, the idea of metaphors, and how that can help us, both as the coach and the coachee, to kind of open our mind to try and think differently and to move past whether it's a blocker, whether it's, just something you want to enrich in your behaviors in your life and skills. So I've only really just recently connected with metaphors, and that's whilst being outdoors and going on this outdoor coaching sort of journey as a coach and doing it with my coachees. So I've had a few that have come out of the bag as we've gone through there. So everything from using a fence. One of my coachees sort of came and suddenly saw this fence and was like, that's what I'm talking about. And I was thinking, like, okay, let's use the fence, let's go with this fence metaphor. And it was like this idea of everything being connected on the fence, because it sort of had that classic kind of field fence kind of look. And they really wanted for all their little initiatives to be connected in one place, because they felt at the beginning of the coaching journey that that's what they wanted and that would be helpful. But actually, by the time we came round and there was a fence coming into our walk and a fence going out, they got to the fence going out and was like, actually this idea of things crossing over and doing all these things is actually not what I want. I want things to be very much organically grow, and actually if they don't connect, that's totally fine. So I thought having an object, the outdoor object, but also using it as a metaphor was quite helpful. There's also been other ideas around. I was walking with a coachee and we saw two fields. One of the fields was quite depleted. It was a lot of tilling going on in there and it was looking fairly dry. And then the other field beside it was really rich. It had a lot of grass in there, I don't know, maybe planting, whatever things. It was very, very green. And this idea of I sort of said, well, you're going through this moment of inhibiting behaviours and inhibiting thoughts of how to progress. Like, what does that look like? If this was your field, your depleted field, how does that look? How does that sound? And we talk through that. It's like, okay, so if we're going to take this field and turn it into this green, rich field of, health and quite nutritious looking, what would that look like? How would that sound? And again, that was a really transformative moment. And I'm just going to caveat that a little bit because I'm not a big believer in transformational coaching, and that might sound a bit odd, but I don't believe that you can go in to a situation, to a coaching session, and be completely like confused and baffled and coming out of it being like, yes, my life is suddenly sorted. And some people do believe in that, and that's totally fine. But what I have noticed, and what's definitely changing the way that I think, is that when you're outdoors, it certainly feels, and the feedback that I've got from it is that people do go on that journey a lot quicker. And I don't know if that's because we're co-coaching, what I call co-coaching with nature, because we're using nature sort of naturally to lower our stress and to move us forward, but also the physical movement of going forward. I had another coachee who had a bit of very emotional moment in the middle of our walk and said, the fact that I can turn around and see how far I've come and actually where I'm going and my future looking a lot more positive and a lot more structured and decisive than where I've come from. And again, I was just like, this is amazing. And I'm not going to take any credit for that. It's a credit to nature, really. It's beautiful. It's a really magical moment. So the idea of metaphors and really coming to outdoor coaching with an open mind. I know the examples that I've given have been walking, but you can do it in different ways. It is just building that connection. And that's why I just feel so passionate about getting people outdoors and connecting with nature more. One part of that, I read some research recently around 80% of people want to spend more time outside. 80%, like, that's a shocking amount, isn't it? And it makes you question this idea of, well, why aren't we? I mean, literally, it's a case of opening the door and going outside. But are we not giving ourselves the time to naturally just do that or spend more time outside? What's blocking us from being able to do that? So really, my mission, I'm going slightly off, but my mission really is to reduce that number. So it's comes down from 80%, even if it's 75%, there's 5% of people who are spending more time in nature and hopefully feeling less stressed, more energized, more creative in the way that they live. And I think that's really exciting.
So if you're listening to this podcast and you are outside, send us some sign that you're outside. That's what I want people to do. Okay. Well, and I feel that we should press on because we're going to run out of time otherwise. Who's going with you?
So this was really hilarious. So just before we met today, I was having lunch with my wife and I said to my wife, who do you think I'm going to bring with me? This person can be dead or alive. And she gasped. She was like, dead? Well, that's awful. Like, you're just going to drag them? That's heavy. Don't bring a dead person. I was like,
this is why I now phrase it. If you listen back to the early series of this podcast, I did used to say dead or alive. I now say from the past or the present because it's clever. And also they don't fit in your backpack, although your magical backpack, of course, could fit anybody in it. But no, we don't mean that they are still a corpse. If you take them along and they are dead, they are back to the living.
Yes, they are back to the living. It did make me giggle because I didn't think about it like that, but it just shows how people think very differently. And actually, it's important to be able to explain things in a way that everybody...
And if you're one of those people listening to this podcast who also thought that the person would be dead, I will leave my therapist's details in the show notes and you can get in touch with her. Okay.
Anyway, okay. So I've chosen somebody who people may or may not know them. I don't know. I know this person because they're a neighbour and a friend, actually. So this person is called Stephen Campbell. And the reason that I've chosen, no, you don't know him,
I don't know Stephen Campbell yet.
No. Well, the reason I've chosen Stephen Campbell is because Stephen is such a curious person. He is so interesting and he's so interested in people. And the only way that I can describe our conversations, and well, I hope Stephen doesn't mind that I'm sharing him as like my connection to this person to go really take with me, is because you always have meaningful talk. You don't have small talk. Small talk doesn't exist in his repertoire, I don't think. And that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. Because I've got another friend, and I wish I could pick more than two people because I also picked this other person. But having meaningful, big talk and conversations with people, I feel is missing in our day to day now. There are certain people that I feel really, really, really connected with. And I think that kind of comes down to this idea of truly listening to each other in a way of being curious to find out more, to not an analysis of a conversation, but like curiosity to be like, oh, that's really interesting. Let's talk more about that. And what sometimes surfaces, or some things that I've observed, is that if you say to me, oh, Helen, I've just got a new bike at the weekend, it's really good, I'm really enjoying it, I might say, oh, actually, I cycle, and I really enjoy it too. And that kind of natural, and that's nice. But actually, I've just totally diverted the conversation from your enjoyment of your bike. And what could be really nice, actually, oh, tell me more about why you enjoy it. I'd love to know more about that. I'd love to know more about you, rather than just diverting it to me. And there's a really fine line between that and sort of just firing questions at people, where it can be quite intimidating. And I tell you what, Stephen is just a wizard at it. Like, he is genuinely wanting to connect, genuinely wanting to find out more. And you can have a meaningful conversation that literally hours could go past, and you come out of it being like, amazing, I'm alive, and it's just brilliant. So yeah, Stephen.
And you said, oh, it's a shame I can't take more. Well, you actually said, shame I can't take more than two people. No. You're only allowed one person, and you've chosen Stephen. Who's the person who's just missed out on going with you, Helen? That's what I want to know.
No, I can't say that. That would be too harsh.
Oh, you could. You could just tell me, and I'll edit. No, I'm joking, because I wouldn't edit it out. I'd keep it in. I'd completely blow your trust. Right. Well, look, you've got the Cry of the Kalahari, a magnifying glass. You've got your ability to speak to, what are they called? Hoverflies, which we've just added in as a completely separate thing. You've got Stephen Campbell going with you, and you've got metaphors. So you're all packed.
Yeah.
When you go away, I don't know, does your wife help you pack sometimes?
She
I might have just opened up a whole can of worms here that I'm gonna no.
She leaves me signs, put it that way.
Okay, well, let's imagine your mum's over and she's helping you pack. What's the one thing you would want to make sure had not been snuck into your backpack? Because we know it can take a lot of stuff, your backpack. What's the one thing you'd want to make sure wasn't going with you?
Yeah, so it's oddly, the first thing that came to mind was a snake. I don't know why she would pack that. I don't have anything against snakes. I love a snake, but I don't want it in my backpack. The other thing was electronics. If I found my computer or my phone in that backpack, I'd be like, guys, you don't know me at all. So I've been experimenting with this, and when I used to go for a walk, casual walk, 10 minutes, an hour, half an hour, whatever it might be, I used to just take my phone, because I'd be like, well, you never know, do you, when you'll need your phone. And actually, I've stopped taking my phone with me when I go outside. And I feel like freedom from not taking my phone, because I'm like, cool, I'm going outside and I don't need to have to quickly check anything. I know where I'm going. If I get lost, no doubt I'll bump into a hoverfly that I can ask, or else, and I can come back. It will be totally fine. And so when I'm on outdoor coaching, when we're going for a walk or we've been outside, I try and encourage people to actually just leave their electronics at home, or, whether it's a phone, hopefully, it's unlikely we're going to be on the computer unless of whatever agreements that we've had, but try and leave anything electrical at home so we can just enjoy the great outdoors and not have that on us. I recommend people just try it. Just go for a walk without your phone. Like, I know it shouldn't be something that's a big thing. But even if it's just 5 minutes, if you're particularly attached to your phone, which we can do, there's this whole thing of, was it phantom buzzes and things and noises that you hear. Hear the buzz of a bee instead.
And immediately I thought, what if they're running late? They can't get hold of you. I've got an app on my phone that shows me, because we've established I'm an absolute numpty when it comes to the outdoors. For example, I thought a car park was a type of park until recently. No, but you've got Compass. I've got an app that I can take a photo of a plant and it will tell me what it is. It measures my steps. It's got maps, all of that stuff. But of course, I grew up in a time when there were no mobile phones, and I had a great time as a kid.
Yeah.
So it can be done. For those of you who have never lived outside a mobile phone era, it is possible.
It absolutely is possible. The only thing I would say, I am going to caveat this for the health and safety and risk assessment, just in case my insurance are hearing. Actually, I went on a run just by myself the other day. I say the other day, it was about 6 months ago. And there was a puddle with loads of water. It had been frozen over, and I slipped into this puddle, which was really, really cold, obviously, and slightly, it was painful. It was really uncomfortable. So I sort of hobbled home and didn't have my phone with me. And maybe at that point, it could have been quite helpful for me to call, my wife, or we keep bringing my mum to say, could you come and pick me up?
I'd ring your mum, because we've established that your wife got confused about bringing a dead body with her. So you don't know what she'd be dragging along if she came to save you.
That is true.
Well, and here's a suggestion. Turn it off. Right? Actually turn the phone off, not onto silent, because off, it does take quite a while to turn it on. And actually the process of turning it on, I reckon, is going to prevent most people from actually doing it while they're in nature, because it's quite an effort. I mean, it's such a first world problem, right? Swiping it to open it is one thing. Turning it on and waiting for that little sign and whatever happened, it does take a little bit longer. Maybe that's a step in the right direction. You can always turn it on if you need it, right?
Absolutely. Turn it off, put it in your magical bag.
Or give it to your friend. Swap phones so that you actually have to ask permission to get it from them, right?
Oh, you could do that. Yeah, nice. Lots of options. Okay. Yeah.
I've got a question for you. Have you ever, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but maybe you have you ever done an outdoor session via Zoom?
No, I haven't actually, but it is something that I'm starting to look at. So coming back to kind of diversifying and not cutting anybody out, I do think it's possible. It was a conversation we were having the other day with a group of coachees. And actually, I had a coactive coaching session the other day with a friend of mine. And one of the things that we did was look outdoors and describe and be in that space. So I think, no, I haven't done it yet, but yes, I think it's possible. It would be interesting to research and experiment with that to see if it has that same sort of transitional sort of moment.
Okay, not such a stupid question.
No.
Quite pleased with myself there. Okay, where would you like to be going on this fictional gig that you've got, or where would you like to not be going? I'm not going to allow you to say, I want to be outside.
As an outdoor coach, I want to be bringing purposeful conversations, not only to individuals, but in my horizon, I see teams and organisations too. So we are truly bringing people back to nature. We are truly reducing stress. We are, like I was saying earlier, increasing creativity, spending more time outdoors, and coming back and reconnecting with nature, and doing that more than just this idea of like the one day wellbeing events. I mean, that's just really a load of rubbish. Like, it's great. I mean, that's a start, right? But it's funny, I was working with a team a couple of years ago, and I remember this particular organisation said, oh, we've got our wellbeing day on Friday. And the developers that I'm working with, one in particular said, well, I'm going to be working that day because actually it's more stressful for me not to work than it is to work, and therefore I'm going to be working. And actually, what is this? We have one a year. So my mission is, again, to reduce that 80% of people wanting to be outdoors to actually being outdoors. Starting that with individuals, but actually moving to teams and organizations and encouraging team days outdoors, encouraging workshops outdoors in nature, encouraging meetings, retrospectives, being focused on what can we learn from nature in order to improve our processes in the way that we work together and the way that we communicate. And having well-being actually being part of our culture rather than, again, this one-day event. That's what I see myself going. Yeah, my vision and mission of outdoor coaching.
I'm sold on the idea of outdoor coaching. In fact, I'm going to go for a walk when we finish this podcast. If people want to know more about Helen Garcia and outdoor coaching, where can they go?
Well, you can find me at helen-garcia.com, which is my website. You can find out a bit more about outdoor coaching there. I've got a couple of videos on there. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active. Yeah, and just if you have questions, queries, you want to understand more about it, then I am very happy, very passionate about the topic and a real believer in it. So just reach out.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Helen Garcia, for joining us on the Coach's Backpack.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Coach's Backpack. If you would like extra goodies such as free tools, offers, further info about our guests, and maybe even the odd peek inside or of their actual backpack, sign up to our mailing list at thecoachesbackpack.com. And don't forget to follow the podcast too. See you next time.